So we all come on in the beginning and say hi and talk a little bit. And then at the end, we'll do the same if you can stay and you can talk about each other's writing and how the experience went for you. And actually, looking at our screen, we are in fact now live. Hey, everybody. My name is Troy Meyers. I'm a graduate of the Stonecoast MFA in Creative Writing, the University of Southern Maine. About almost a year and a half ago, my colleague and I, Amanda Plow, cooked up this Sunday night reading series for alumni and faculty and special guests of the Stonecoast MFA program. It has been a tremendous gift to me in my own writing and in networking and meeting and seeing friends from across the country and meeting a lot of new wonderful people, including our 3 readers tonight. I always say hi to my mom. Hi, Mom. I know you're watching the next morning. And to Amanda's mom, if she's still watching. We have one more week scheduled of the series. We have a full house again next Sunday night. I'll announce those names and we'll take a little bit of a break, but we'll be back. And in June, Stonecoast proper is going to put on a reading for anyone who published a book in the first half of the year. And I get to help with that, which is a lot of fun. But enough about that. So we have 3 fantastic authors tonight. So excited to have you all here. We'll go in alphabetical order just a little bit. So Melanie, where are you in the U.S. right now, if you're in the U.S.?
I am in Nashua, New Hampshire.
Oh, you are? Fantastic.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Did you grow up there or?
No, I grew up in Canada. But I've lived in the U.S. since I was in my 20s. So, okay. And we've been in Nashua for 21 years. So.
Wow. What brought you south?
I went to school in the U.S. and then met my husband and defected, apparently.
Married an American. Cool.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep.
Well, welcome. Thank you so much for being here. And Jen Dupree, you organized this group of 3. Thank you so much for doing that. Where are you right now in the world?
I live in Maine.
Oh, you do? Good.
Yeah.
Good. There's a lot of folks in Maine from Stonecoast.
There are.
Yeah. What part of Maine are you in?
I live in Naples, so about 45 minutes northwest of Portland.
Okay.
So in the Lakes region, near Sebago Lake.
Oh, I've heard of that place.
Yeah.
Yeah. I went into a bar and ordered the Sebago ale, and I said it wrong, and they're like, "You're not from here, are you?" And I said, no. I also forgot I was wearing my name tag that said Troy Poetry, which was quite the thing.
I think we've all done that at one point or another.
And Jen, you just had a novel published, Miraculous Flight of Owen Leach. We're going to hear from that tonight. Very exciting. Danara, where are you at in the world tonight?
I'm in Knoxville, Tennessee.
Oh, fantastic. Did you grow up in the South or?
I did not. I'm having some trouble with my audio. Are you able to hear me okay?
We can hear you fine. Yeah, maybe a little lag. So
okay.
You're working on a PhD at
Kansas State. That's I think what I have.
Okay. You're working
Correct,
on a doctorate.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And what?
Yeah,
what is
I'm working on a doctorate in literature.
Very cool. What's your area of study?
My area of focus is 20th century post-apocalyptic novels and how we read those through the lens of the developing theories of the Anthropocene.
That sounds very doctoral. Truly impressive.
Those are a lot of big words.
Well, okay, but there's a certain amount of pressure to keep it real.
No, I'm sure. I've read The Road, right? Cormac McCarthy. That shook me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes, that's a great example.
Yeah.
That's a good book.
Good. And and tonight you're reading a short story, I think.
I am. I'm reading a short story. It's called A Fucking Fairy Tale, so stick around.
That is the best title in a year and a half of the show.
It really is.
Fairy tale. I love it. Sorry, Mom, but it's literature. All right, cool. So you've agreed to go in alphabetical order. And so what I'm going to do now is Jen will put you and Danara in the waiting room. You can still see and everything. No one can hear you, so you're on your own. And then Melanie will bring you up and we'll talk a bit and we'll hear what you brought. Thank you so much, everybody. I almost pulled myself off. Hey, Melanie.
Hello.
Hello. Nice. You've read before, right? On this.
I have. Yep.
Good. Thank you so much for coming back.
I'm very glad to be back. Again, thanks for doing this. I think it's great.
I love it. I really do. You're welcome. It's been great for me. Now you're going to read from an essay you just published in Huffington Post. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah. So
That's very impressive.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I turned 50 in March, and so I wrote about how I didn't want to turn 50. So.
Well, good for you. I mean, most people turn 50, they have some other midlife crisis. You published a piece.
Right. We could look at it that way. Yeah.
You got it on paper. Good for you.
Yeah.
And you look amazing for 50, by the way. You do not look 50.
Oh, thank you very much.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. Well, what's it called?
It's called People Say Turning 50 is Fabulous. Here's What They Didn't Tell Me.
Oh, I love it. I'll think back in my life to when I turned 50.
Yeah.
In a few years. Okay, very cool. So I'm ready to turn you loose if you like. You ready to go?
All right. Great.
All right. The time is yours. Let's see what you have, Melanie. Thank you so much.
All right. Thanks, Troy. Lately, there's been this recurring TV commercial that my husband Chris and I find particularly distressing. It's for a diabetes drug. The ad begins with a son coming home for a visit after leaving for college. He observes the way his father has turned his focus to old hobbies and is developing some new, healthier habits, implying that using this drug opens space in your life for other things besides managing your type 2 diabetes. The 60-second spot cycles through scenes of the father, a somewhat hefty, gray-haired man, working out, preparing salads, while his wife flashes their son an approving look, tinkering with his car's engine, and fishing on a scenic lake. The wife, a woman with a nondescript practical haircut, also fully gray, and mom jeans, definitely not the trendy ones that my 19-year-old daughter wears, hovers on the periphery. Our distress is rooted in the implication that this man and this woman supposedly represent people at our stage of life, parents with a child who has just left for college. Our daughter began this fall, adjusting to the empty nest, rediscovering old pastimes, and trying out new ones. Every time we see it, and if we happen to be watching the nightly news or one of the early morning shows, we see it a lot, one of us inevitably has to ask, do I really seem that old? No way, the other reassures. There's no way that couple is our age. An unsure silence usually follows. It's weighted with all the denials that want to confidently claim our hold on youth and vitality, but are struggling to take shape and leave our mouths. Even if the actors in the ad are miscast age-wise, and I really want to believe they are, a nagging feeling tugs at the edge of my consciousness and leaves me doubting. Maybe that commercial is more about us than we care to admit. This week, I turn 50. I'd like to say that I am embracing this milestone birthday with boundless grace and gratitude, but honestly, I'm dragging my heels more than a little bit as the looming finish line of my 40s approaches and I teeter on the brink of becoming officially middle-aged, which statistically actually happened when I turned 40, since the average life expectancy for women in the US is 81. You're only as old as you feel, right? A friend, still living blissfully in her mid-40s, quipped recently in an effort to reassure me that turning 50 is no big deal. It didn't work. If that's true, I responded, I'm in big trouble. Because here's the thing, I do feel old in so many ways. Take, for example, my left foot. It hurts regularly, especially when I wake up in the middle of the night to pee. Don't even get me started on this epic betrayal by my bladder. The first step out of bed genuinely feels like the floor is made of spikes. I move through the darkness to the bathroom in an off-balance hobble, reminiscent of a drunken sailor. It's not pretty. A recent trip to the podiatrist revealed that the plantar fasciitis I had surgery for in my 30s has returned, along with a half-inch heel spur. It might eventually mean more surgical intervention, but for the time being, it means consistent use of a bulky stretching boot, Advil, and sensible, translate that to ugly, shoes. My foot issue wouldn't be overly concerning if it weren't for the fact that I'm supposed to be training for a half marathon at the end of May, an ill-conceived venture instigated by my oldest brother, who might also be pushing back against the realities of his age. He's 53, FYI, that I grudgingly agreed to because of my lifelong fear of missing out and not being able to stand the thought of my 3 brothers accomplishing it without me. My foot, coupled with the gathering aches in my joints, the extra pounds assembling at my waistline, and other places I didn't even know you could gain weight, that are more determined to stay than I am to fight them off, and an expectation based on empirical data from the last few years of trying to regain my exercise momentum that includes 2 broken kneecaps and a stress fracture in my hip, that at any moment something is inevitably going to break down, have me strongly doubting the possibility of running that race, let alone making it up the stairs. So this very soon to be 50 body, with its taunting night sweats forecasting menopause, mysteriously appearing spots and wrinkles, and obnoxious sagging flesh, is making me feel old. But it's not just the physical. There's also the fact that my firstborn, the culprit in the creation of that sagging flesh, is about to turn 22. How is it possible that I have a 22-year-old? Chris and I got married when we were 22. There's no way that this kid of mine, who I still partly see as the 4-pound premature baby I could hold in the palm of my hand, is possibly ready for anything so grown up. And yet, whether that's true or not, he does have a serious girlfriend and is about to apply to graduate school. Despite my sincere efforts to stay relevant and keep up with the interests and outlooks of my own Gen Z kids and the college students I teach, some recent interactions have exposed the grim reality that I have not. Here's a sampling. 1, I made a Schitt's Creek reference in my class the other day, and my students offered me their best blank stares. Nobody has watched Schitt's Creek? Come on. Ooh, David, best wishes, warmest regards, I exclaimed. One guy dutifully raised his hand. My mom loves that show, he said. 2, aware of its cult-like following, I convinced my 19-year-old daughter, who'd binged the series, to watch the first episode of HBO's Euphoria with me while she was home for spring break. It was a mistake. She prepared me for the sexual content and substance abuse. But as I watched the teenage characters face one traumatic experience after another, I couldn't stop myself from repeating, "Where are their parents?" and felt a burgeoning anxiety for the well-being of all teenagers the world over. I can't do it, I told Lily, peeling my fingers away from my eyes when she asked if I wanted to watch the second episode. We turned on Grey's Anatomy instead. 3, I once saw a t-shirt that said, "You know you're getting old when you open your mouth and your mother comes out." Well, last week, when I spent 10 minutes engaged in a sanctimonious conversation on a walk with a friend about Rihanna's sheer black maternity dress over a lacy bra and panties and nothing else that she wore to the Dior show during Paris Fashion Week, I heard myself say, I mean, really, can that even be called a dress? And there my mother was. 4, today, I experienced a disproportionate surge of excitement when I managed to guess the day's Wordle on my second try, and I came precariously close to posting it on Facebook. When I turned 40, I didn't feel old. There wasn't time. I was teaching a full load of classes, and I'd started a master's program in creative writing with lofty literary goals keeping me focused. My children were 12 and 9, and I was looking ahead to the business of middle school and high school. My work and the kids' activities and year-round sports, baseball, soccer, gymnastics, basketball, track and field, lacrosse, were the guardrails that kept my schedule full, productive, and moving in a defined direction. Now, 10 years later, my kids are both in college, and where all that scheduled activity used to live is wide open space. Unlike drug commercial man, who has apparently pounced on the chance to recreate himself as he's entered his new stage of life, I feel stalled. I'm approaching this 6th decade without a map, and a languishing sense of uncertainty has latched on and won't let go. It doesn't help that I'm turning 50 at a time when the whole world seems to be experiencing an existential crisis. There are layers of collective and individual trauma that have emerged from the ongoing effects of the COVID-19 pandemic, the war in Ukraine, and the sobering forecast from global climate researchers that have us all feeling a generalized sense of unease. But as I try to wrap my head around the mounting dread accompanying my birthday and what comes next, I recognize there is more to it than that. My dad died when he was 53. He'd lived with an incurable illness for close to 10 years, and though reaching his 50th birthday was an achievement none of us had allowed ourselves to envision after his diagnosis, it felt less of a celebration and more of a step closer to the end, which, as it turned out, it was. My mom was 52 when he died. She and my father had dated since she was 14 years old. The grief of losing him derailed her natural transition to midlife, and she spent a good part of the next 2 decades trying, in various ways, to reinvent herself and fill the void. Now 78, she's reached a graceful and settled rhythm, one definitely worth striving for when I reach that age. But in terms of role models for how to lean into my current moment or portraits of flourishing 50s, neither my father's nor mother's trajectories offered much guidance. The truth is, I'm scared. I'm scared that I'm 50 and I haven't done enough. I'm scared that I'm 50 and I don't know what to do now. And I'm scared that before I can unravel these fears and grab onto a tangible thread of direction, time is going to run out. Positive thinking, and oftentimes my therapist, tell me to wrap my arms around my fears, pull them close and listen to their wise whispers. My thinking, on the other hand, tells me to grab a handful of chocolate chips, hide under a weighted blanket, and ignore my fears for as long as I can. My immediate challenge, since there's only so much fulfillment I can garner from the chocolate chips before self-loathing about the chocolate chips sets in, is to find some sort of middle ground. Maybe I don't have to go as far as fully embracing the things that scare me, but I can at least acknowledge them, give them a little space inside all of this new wide open space I have, and stop trying to run from them, which currently doesn't have the outlook of being all that successful anyway. See previous commentary on my left foot. Maybe it's not so much about suddenly recreating myself in a way that'll make my kids feel compelled to do voiceover narration about their new and improved mother when they come home from college, but instead, it's about taking the pressure off, easing my way in, and reminding myself who I already am. And even though I'm clearly not all that secure about her, there's one thing I do know about 50-year-old me for certain. She's not yet surrendering to the exterior cues prescribing mom jeans and a practical haircut for women her age, no matter what portrait that drug commercial paints of who I'm supposed to be.
Thank you, Melanie.
Thanks, Troy.
So vivid and so human.
Thanks.
I love the drug commercial, man. I hadn't thought about that, but those commercials do present, this is what aging is supposed to look like, I guess.
Right.
Fantastic. So those injuries you had were exercise injuries? The hip?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. They just get worse. It just keeps going.
You were a runner?
Yeah.
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 Wow. Well, that's a little sobering, but I have pain, so I understand. I love when you brought in your parents' story.
Thank you. Thanks.
That was very moving.
Thanks.
Yeah, that part will stay with me. Losing someone after so many years together has to affect the rest of one's life. And you
Right.
covered that briefly, but beautifully.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're very welcome.
Yeah.
Well, are you, so you've just published this at Huffington Post,
Yep.
which is
Just came out a couple weeks ago in HuffPost. Yeah.
very impressive.
Thank you.
Do you have any other works out, short stories or books or?
Nothing right now. Still working on, working on some other essays and hoping that my memoir finds a publisher one of these days. And
Do you have a title for the memoir?
yep, it's called A Hard Silence.
Wow. I tell you, I hear the greatest titles from the writers who come on the show. That is a great title.
Thank you. Thanks.
Good luck with that, surely.
Thanks, Troy. Thank you.
It was an honor that you shared that part of your life. It was very, very transparent and vulnerable too.
Yeah. Honest. It's true.
Honest. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it. We need more of that.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right, Melanie, I'm going to bring you down for just a second and bring on our next reader. Everyone, if you're just joining us, my name is Troy Meyers. I'm a graduate of the Stonecoast MFA in Creative Writing, University of Southern Maine. This is the every so often Sunday night reading series called Stonehouse Readers. We host guests, alumni mostly, and faculty also from the Stonecoast program. So we just heard some fantastic work from Jen Duprey, her essay that appeared in Huffington Post, and we are bringing up the next reader. They wanted to do alphabetical, so that was Melanie Brooks. Sorry, not Jen Duprey. Jen Duprey's next. Jen, how are you?
I'm excellent.
Welcome.
Thanks for giving me credit for Melanie's essay, but
Well, I just can't read my own writing, but sorry. Thank you, Jen. You collected this group of writers to come on, and I'm very grateful.
Oh yeah, we were always together at Stonecoast, and it's really fun to do this. So
good.
Yeah.
And you did fiction at Stonecoast, and you just had a novel come out, which you're reading from, correct?
Yes. Yeah.
What is your novel?
It is The Miraculous Flight of Owen Leach, and it was my thesis at Stonecoast. Although I started it 8 years ago, so long process from start to finish. But
that's okay.
Yeah.
It's a novel.
Yeah.
And we can see it anywhere. You said it came out with who was the publisher?
It's Apprentice House.
Apprentice House. So anywhere that books are is your book.
That's right.
Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah.
And congratulations on turning your thesis into a published novel.
Yeah. Yeah. I know. Who'd have thunk it? But it's great. And I had a lot of help and encouragement along the way. And yeah, it's pretty exciting though to see it actually finished and in real life. So
I would think that would be very exciting. It's your first book?
It is. Yeah.
Okay. And just give us a quick intro. What's it about? What are you going to read from it?
Yeah. I'm going to read the first 2 chapters. It is about a young woman who she's 19. She has a baby and she's really overwhelmed. She ends up letting the baby go out the window. Whether she throws him or she drops him remains to be seen. But another woman catches the baby and decides that she has the right to keep him. And so the novel unfolds from there.
That's Owen Leach, the baby.
That's Owen Leach is the baby. Yeah.
That is a brilliant premise.
Thank you.
So original. Well, very cool, Jen. I will let you. It's all your time. We're excited to hear from your new book.
Great.
All right, take it away.
Thank you. The night Rose caught the baby, she and Hank were on their way to an anniversary dinner. They had reservations at the only decent restaurant in Parker, Maine, a place that faced the lake and dimmed the lights. While short on restaurants that didn't use paper napkins and plastic utensils, Parker was long on unpretentious charm. Stores that stocked fishing bait as well as milk, porch swings that were used by people and stray cats, borrowed books returned in mailboxes. You'd never find any of that in the town Rose had grown up in Massachusetts, the town she and Hank had lived in for the first 5 years of their marriage. As Hank parked, Melody from the post office drove by and tooted her horn, and Rose waved. They weren't friends, but they were friendly, and Rose found that comforting. In the quiet parking lot, Rose flipped down the car's visor, ran her fingers through her dark curls, centered her part. She smoothed her dress over her tiny baby bump. It was early still, but later than the 3 failed pregnancies that had followed Frederick, and Rose felt hope and fear in equal measure. "Do you think we should call home and check on Frederick?" He'd been fussy when they left, refusing to let go of the paper airplane Hank constructed for him. "I don't like the thought of him poking his eye out with the corner of that thing." "It wasn't that sharp," Hank said. "You worry too much." And then, leaning across the console and pressing his lips to her shoulder, "You look great." He touched her belly, briefly. She smiled at him. "Ditto." He was wearing his suit and the red-orange tie she'd bought him years ago on a whim because it reminded her of a sunset they'd seen on their first picnic. The dinner wouldn't last more than an hour and a half, tops. Even if they ordered an appetizer and dessert, even if the service was slow. She would get some kind of pasta dish. Hank would order steak. They would talk, but not much. She'd already told him her funny Frederick story of the day, while she'd emptied her big purse into her smaller clutch, and Hank helped Frederick eat squash and peas. That afternoon at the park, Frederick spotted a plane overhead. He held out his arms and swooped around until Rose thought his arms would fall off, with exhaustion. He was so small and determined and perfect. Hank laughed when she held out her arms and dipped her body, then made a spoonful of squash swoop around, and Frederick laughed and clapped. She could repeat that story and maybe tell him about the other mothers who'd smiled at Frederick. She could tell him about the dress she was hemming for a client, the car-themed quilt she'd just finished for her 5-year-old nephew, the zucchini she bought at the farmer's market. Hank would tell her 1 or 2 anecdotes from work. They wouldn't talk about the tentative life growing inside her, because talking about it would make the loss worse, if the loss came again. Hank opened his door. "We're going to be late." Rose tried not to think about her sweatpants, the couch, the weight and heat of Frederick's head in her lap. She eased her legs out of the car, shifted her purse, and prepared herself to go. Then something caught her attention. Rose looked up and saw, across the street, a woman in the second-floor window of one of the houses. Over in this part of town, there were a bunch of old colonials that had been converted into apartments. This one was white, with paint flaking off around the windows. In the front yard, a green plastic planter was half full of purple and pink impatiens, but the other side was empty except for a fast food cup with a straw. Herbs would be nice in those planters. Basil, for sure, rosemary maybe, some thyme. Spread out the impatiens so they filled both planters, pick out the trash. Maybe a whiskey barrel full of vinca vine on the dirt part of the lawn would make the barrenness less acute. The woman in the window was backlit by lemon yellow light, and she was pacing back and forth with a screaming baby clutched in her arms. When the woman paused, the light looked like a halo, and Rose thought fleetingly of the Virgin Mary. She stopped, tipped her head up to the window. The window was open, and the baby's cries were unrelenting. Rose felt an ache of sympathy for both the woman and the baby. She felt heaviness in her own arms, exhaustion in her back, and the desire to simultaneously run away and sit down. "It's none of our business," Hank said, taking her elbow. The baby's face was red. The mother's hair frizzed. Rose could see her hurry and slow. She thought about knocking on the ratty gray door and offering to hold the baby while the woman took a cool, unrushed shower. Hank started to walk away, tugging at her elbow and then letting go. We aren't going to make the reservation. So what if they didn't? They wouldn't starve. They could pick up Chinese food and bring it home and lay out a blanket on the living room floor. They could send the babysitter home and give Frederick an egg roll cut into bits or some fried rice mushed up with milk. They could lean against pillows and eat with chopsticks and watch their son watch them. Rose's feet cemented to the pavement. For a moment, she watched Hank's receding back, the wisps of toffee-colored hair ticking over his short collar, the way his hands swung on either side of his legs. On the long-ago first morning after they'd made love, she'd watched him leave the apartment and thought of the hand-swinging as awkward but endearing. She hardly ever noticed it anymore. "Wait up," she called. And then Rose saw the gap close between the woman and the window. She saw the hesitation in the woman's step. The woman lifted her arms like she was making an offering, and Rose saw the baby suspended in air. Instinctively, Rose ran. 2. A ball of fire erupted inside Sophia's belly, right where the baby had been. She could feel heat licking her entire body. She paced, back and forth, fast, slow. Heat from the inside she couldn't escape. Screaming. He wouldn't stop. She went to the crib and stood over him, watching his pinched up face turn the color of canned beets. It started as a cry, then moved into a wail, then something ragged and sharp. An occasional hiccup, cough, breath. Then revving up again, inconsolable. In a fit of inspiration, Sophia dangled the caterpillar toy she'd lifted from Rennie's, and he looked at it briefly and then screamed louder. The crib was pushed up against the refrigerator because there was no other place for it, and because the humming seemed to placate the baby, usually. Sophia threw the toy aside, braced her hands on the cool refrigerator, tipped her face down toward his. "I don't know what you want," she said. She picked him up, even though her mother said picking him up every time he cried would only spoil him. But right now, her mother was at bingo in her green shirt dress, and the screaming was boiling Sophia inside out. Her mother was probably sipping on an iced coffee, chatting with the ladies on either side of her about lucky daubers and praying for B6. Sophia hated bingo, but right now she would have given anything to be there, in the air conditioning, with the soothing rattle of little balls in a cage. With the baby flung over her shoulder, Sophia walked the length of the apartment, from the kitchen out past the evergreen-colored couch to the little metal table big enough for one chair, past the knee-high stack of canned peas and corn she'd bought on clearance. Back and forth. Heat came from everywhere. Her body, his body, she couldn't tell. She turned, repeated. 10 steps in either direction. On and on, he screamed. Her body that used to be her own, enticing, inviting. Now she ached like a beaten dog, her arms from holding him, her unmilked breasts, her back. Once she'd let boys pinch and rub and suck at her, and now the fabric of her t-shirt made her want to curl up into a ball and scream. Yesterday, the fat landlord with the hefty belt and sweat-stained t-shirt told her he was selling the place and that the couple buying it was going to convert the home back to a single family. "That means you and the kid gotta go," he said, shrugging like it didn't matter. Shrugging like she had all kinds of options. Through the slit in his fat face, he said, "Pretty girl like you, you'll be okay." "Fuck you," she said, out loud now, even though he wasn't there. She knew he wasn't there, but she could smell the salty ham and pickles he must have had for lunch. "I'm not going to beg." What had they told her in the hospital about crying? She'd changed the baby already, but now she ran a finger along the inside of the diaper. Still dry, she rocked him and he wailed louder. She shifted him to her shoulder and he cried in her ear. The piercing felt intentional and she almost let go, let him just slide right out of her arms. Hateful little creature. She paced past the window, caught her ankle on the edge of the rinky table she kept her TV on, stumbled forward, and nearly dropped him. She gripped him tighter to her chest. The heat-fogged window winked at her. She pushed aside the cheap lime green curtain and looked out there at the gray-blue dusk sky. Out there, a deep pool of quiet, endless quiet. She set the baby on the floor on a blanket, wiped her forehead on her sleeve. The baby's face was nearly purple. His eyes accused her of incompetence. She turned her back on him. His screaming filled the room, filled the air, filled her lungs so that she couldn't breathe. At the counter, she mixed a bottle of formula and sang the only thing that would come to her. Row, row, row your boat gently down the stream. Merrily, 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 life is but a dream. She sang and shook the bottle and thought about how her mother must have sung that song to her, or maybe it was one of her mother's boyfriends. Sophia sang it again, loud enough that she could only hear her own voice. Emptying out her lungs, she sang it again. Let the neighbors call the cops. Let them. She sang until her throat felt raw. The baby was gasping for air between cries now. Sophia picked him up, cradled him in her arms. If she tripped, if he fell and hit his head, she'd be lost without him. She'd be found. Okay, she said. Okay. She'd fed him just before the crying began, and she didn't think he was hungry now. But she didn't know. How could she know? How did anyone know? She pressed the bottle to his lips. He turned his head, wailed as if offended. Give me a break, Sophia whispered. Please, someone, just give me a break. Her mother did not keep her cell phone on when she was at bingo. Sophia found the phone book, propping open the bathroom door, and looked up the bingo hall. She dialed with an unsteady hand. A sing-song hello, cheery voices in the background. May I please speak to Vicky Leach? Silence, and then laughing. She says she isn't here right now. On the other end of the line, the phone clicked against the cradle, and Sophia threw the baby bottle against the wall. It hit her ancient TV, thumped to the floor. It had to be 100 degrees in her apartment. She went to the window that faced the back, yanked it open as hard as she could with one hand, not caring if she was letting in the stink of the dumpsters. It opened an inch. No air moved in. The baby wailed, kicked, sucked in a wet breath. Sophia gave in to her own tears. I know you hate me, she said. I know, and I don't even care anymore. Why couldn't he be quiet? She crossed the apartment to open the windows that faced the street. Across 2 lanes of traffic was the high school where she'd been a girl who was fun, who was not the useless mother of a miserable baby. Back then, she'd lied about cramps to get out of history tests, snuck sips of Jack Daniels from a shared thermos at lunch, blew kisses to the boys trying out for football. She thought she knew everything. The window stuck a little, and by the time she forced it open, she was crying harder, sweating a river down her back, into her eyes. She could hardly see, could hear nothing except the screech of her mercilessly unhappy baby. Her breath felt tight, her shoulders and back ached like she'd been on the losing end of a fight. For the life of her, she could not remember what she'd named him. She had been calling him the name for 3 months now, but it was erased from her memory. Something with a long vowel sound, something that reminded her of something else. Emo? Avid? Ulysses? She had him in her arms again, and she was moving faster and faster, practically running, knowing that you shouldn't run with a baby because you could shake him, and you should not shake him ever. It was when she slowed that her foot stuttered on the rug. As she pitched forward, her arms loosened. It was not until the baby was released into the thick blue heat that she remembered. Owen.
Wow, Jen. Wow. The descriptive details are outstanding.
Oh, thank you.
And to write, if that were an assignment, write a scene where a woman is struggling with an infant and may or may not let him go. It'd be very hard to do well. You wrote pristine fiction.
Oh, thank you.
And I think, I've never been a mom, of course, but I think a lot of parents can identify with just the frustration and struggle.
Yeah, I hope so.
Child. Yeah, gosh. Beautiful stuff. The pretty girl like you, right? The mean landlord.
Yeah.
Where the heat, his body, her body, it was just beautiful.
Thank you.
Where did you get the concept of the baby?
Yeah, I think like a long time ago, I had read a newspaper article about somebody who threw a baby out a window and he landed on a mattress and was saved because he had landed on this mattress in this alleyway. And just that whole idea of like what brings a woman to that point. And so I started to sort of imagine that person and then this other, instead of it being a mattress, I wanted it to be another person who catches the baby and sort of complicate things even more. But yeah, it was really kind of interesting to go through this and, particularly with Sophia to make her as fully, not just a villain, not just somebody but to make her, really sympathetic.
Yes, which you did. And the opening scene, I forgot the name of the couple.
Hank and Rose.
Yeah, Hank and Rose. That the hand swinging. that scene was fantastic, and there's already all these relational tensions and complexities and questions and wrapped up in those two.
Yeah.
And then we see what's going to enter their life when the baby goes out the window. Fantastic. I found it. It's on Amazon right now, Kindle, or you may not want to buy Amazon. I can't say where to buy it, but it is anywhere. And I'm very interested, and I'm going to get it and read it. And thank you so much for sharing, Jen.
Oh, thank you for having me. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. I hope you make the book release thing. Stonecoast puts on an official book release.
Yes.
In June and December. So you are invited.
Thank you.
On my behalf. I don't work for Stonecoast. But you're invited. Yeah, fantastic. All right, we'll bring you back at the end and we can all sort of debrief just a little bit. We'll bring up our last reader tonight. Hey, Danara, you're having some connection issues. How's it going?
Oh, I'm here.
Good.
I think maybe I just have a slight delay sometimes.
Okay.
And apparently I'm a little dark, but we have to live with that.
I'm a little washed out, so it's all good. Yin yang.
Okay.
I will let you read because with the lag, it's hard. And maybe at the end, we can talk a little. So what did you bring for us tonight? What are you reading?
Sure. I'm reading a short story that I just finished up today. And so it's a rough one, but I figured since I was reading with two pros, why even try to best those two? So I'm reading a piece called A Fucking Fairy Tale, and there are some curse words. It does deal with some mental illness, addiction issues, if anybody's not about that. But I'm ready to roll when you're ready.
It's all your time, Danara. I can't wait to hear it. Thank you so much.
Okay. You want a feel-good story, so don't bother with mine. Everybody wants a happy ending, but most aren't that great. Beating the odds, beating addiction, people like beating stories. I was a junkie, that's as true as anything I can tell you. Dope, heroin, Xanax, whiskey, whatever. The distinction doesn't matter, the effect did. I told my Deb that she didn't need to worry about me leaving for another man or woman. That isn't how I'll cheat. I climbed those 12 steps long ago, but it's my own self I have to overcome. I've done my time beating myself. Not like my mom used to beat me, that's different. Full of aches and shames. You can say I beat the odds if sobriety suits your fairy tale, but this place doesn't feel like a damn castle. Deb is here. I can't tell if it's a good thing to have her there rubbing her knuckles and asking questions that I ignore because I only have answers same as hers. I was married before, fucked that up. He's remarried and just retired from the police force out in Missoula. His wife and him got a motorhome the very next day. Can you imagine? And they aren't even the kind of people who need to run away. He was good to me, Tim was, but I was stupid and young. You shouldn't marry a woman you meet when she's bumming smokes. I failed my biology midterm and saw Tim standing outside the ROTC building shooting the shit with a bunch of guys. His Wranglers fit tight like they should, and he kept twisting his foot on the heel of a cowboy boot. You the fucking Marlboro man? I yelled at him. Or you just fucking the Marlboro man? Equal opportunities offender. I'm not a man hater or a gay hater, though Deb might say different. I got a smoking enchiladas out of that line. Tim was too nice to know he didn't have to buy me dinner. I wouldn't have finished that BS degree but for Tim. That's not BS for bullshit. He aced criminal justice and pulled me through my labs. He was always an eye on the prize guy. No way a girl with a mouth like you can't get through the science. Street smart, not science smart. Had to work for that. We drove to Pensacola the day after graduating, got married the day after that, and now I see that Tim is a day after that guy when I've always been a morning after girl. Don't be judgy. It was the early 90s. We got a real nice house trailer west of Pensacola. Love carried us through tough stuff and good times too. Tim joined the PD, and you expect me to say I waited tables, right? I worked running lab cultures at the hospital. We ate Arby's Thursdays and had sex when we felt like, bailed a dog out of county lockup, fed strays, cats, and people. You want to know how I fucked it up? Not even the way you think. Deb chuckles and forms her benign smile, that forced half grimace that says, doing my best, keeping on, keeping on. Then she says it, keeping on, keeping on. She fucking says it to the counselor. It's annoying as shit, and I still love her. Who knows why she keeps trying to hold the pieces of me together when I'm all the time breaking apart. A finger falls off here, a chunk of hair there, a tooth, then a nail. Risa, how are you today? It's good to see you here. This counselor. She's tilting her neck to open my face with her prying eyes. She told me to call her Taffy the first day in. I know what you think about that kind of name. She's 67 and wears her hair cropped and messy around her squarish head. Glasses over gold owl eyes, and general kindness on a face that looks consistently pleased with Christ knows what. You thought she was going to be a cheerleader with that name. She cheerleads from a paisley chair on the 6th floor. People know what's on the 6th floor of Mercy Hospital. Taffy poises a pen over her open folder and waits. I'm here scribbling, and she waits. Deb nudges my flip-flop with her sneaker. I cross my legs. Optimism was the trouble with Tim. Glass half empty or half full, the fact remains that I don't have as much as I want no matter how I squint. It isn't greed that shapes desire, it's deprivation. What are you writing, Risa? Is it something you'd like to share with Deb and me? Taffy is wily as hell. I did look up at her when she mentioned this absurdity. Deb, why don't you tell Risa about life at home? What's been happening for you? Okay, well, I took Mr. Pinkerton to get his shots yesterday and everything checked out. A little heart murmur. They said, we'll watch that. That tiger cat's been coming around, though, so Stevie's been fighting. You know Stevie. Work's been okay. They want me to move to second shift, and I probably will do that. There's some big order needs shipped by the end of the month. I'm the best tow motor operator they got. 55-year-old woman. Deb chuckles again. I watch my pencil moving, but can't not see Deb, smell her, and know her. Gary up the street. You know Gary and Mary? Yeah, I'm not in here for Alzheimer's. His granddaughter just got in a bad car accident, so she moved in with them. He said Mary and her don't get along and that, Jesus H. Christ, Deb, you just talk and you don't say anything intelligent. Your mouth, it moves and moves. You know Stevie fights and you can't manage to protect him. There are a gazillion feline diseases and there you are. Well, boys will be boys. Your mom died 10 years ago because you couldn't take care of her. Why are you even here? The worms are coming back and you can't do anything. Deb recoils. She's not a crier though. I am. These tears need to disappear because if I can just stay quiet, if I say nothing, the worms won't come back. I can control this. I said that about drugs too, and it scares me. I touch my cheek but don't feel anything under the skin yet. Nothing rattles Taffy. Your words are verbally abusive, Risa. We're here to communicate, not to attack. We aren't here at all. I am here, going on week 3. Tim took a bullet one night. A person called me from the department to tell me where the ambulance headed. I gulped a shot of Jack from the bottle, raced out the door, and buckled into our Monte Carlo. In my defense, that car always had wonky steering and bad tires. Risa, are you with us? Trying not to be, Taffy. People say beginning of the end, like a quip, existential snark. It's all just circles, loop-de-loop, stair-stepping like Slinky. Was there a beginning of the end with Tim, or did I pretty much end with my beginning? Tim repeated that he wanted to know everything about me, but the story of my life weighed too much. It can't crush someone I love if I don't share it. Taffy tells me to talk about the traumas. When I met Deb and didn't want to ruin everything again, I did talk about the traumas as part of my recovery. I talked about them without shame. I also talked about them without understanding their tragedy. Protagonist Risa got busted up by alcoholic mother and abusive uncle. Risa went to foster care, not a place for foundlings, but a place for fondling. Risa knifed a boy who tried to touch her. Risa went to juvie, not a place for reform, but violent formation. Risa used her brain. What makes education more valuable than manipulation? Risa used a bottle and a pill and a needle and went back to the bottle. Risa lost her mind, not in a nutty professor way, in a picking the bugs out of her face way. Risa kept the evidence on a paper towel. She showed it to the neighbor. She searched Google for worms that burrow into faces and gums and eyes. When Deb looked at the towel and Risa's scarred face, she didn't ask the question, but Risa knew what she thought. I've been 13 years sober, other than a little weed to keep me straight, 13 years. I say that out loud unintentionally. Here, I recognize the tragedy of a kid who cleaned up her mother's literal shit, but got out of the system to go to school, got a good job with a good house and a good husband. She even got clean when she recognized the second chance, and she's still breaking apart. Another tooth and another nail and another clump of hair abandon this disintegrating body. The hepatitis, slipped disc, and some weird disease in my eye can't see for shit, not what's on the horizon or over the hill, just what's in this room, what's in my head. Risa, that's an accomplishment. You've worked hard in your life to stay sober. Deb, what has her sobriety meant for your relationship? The DWI and totaled Monte Carlo were the beginning of the end. The wound in Tim's leg healed slow. That bullet missed his femoral artery by a fraction. Go ahead, judge my selfishness, shooting Jack while my husband recovered from a shooting. I never wanted to burden Tim with the weight of my past, but the bulky load of our present became less bearable by the day. Tim's mom told him to come home. Tim held on to hope or whatever his Prince Charming vision of the world was. My so-called friends told me to leave too. It should have been me to leave, not for spite, for love. You think, oh, she did the noble thing. You don't know me that well. I wedged myself into that trailer and into Tim's life so tight neither of us could wiggle. I sobered up for the first time. Well, I know she's trying, and her getting clean gave us a chance. I had my problems too. We both knew Mr. Jack Daniels a little too well. Chuckle, chuckle. Deb uses this line every time sobriety comes up. At first, I thought it was her way of supporting me, of telling people, hey, we've all had our horse shit to shovel. Deb's a deflector. Her joke doesn't show the anguish and anxiety, daily damn work of staying sober. It doesn't even offer the happiness of two people who found each other and decided to climb out of the muck together. Deb's so strong, and it's annoying as hell that she plays it weak. I'm the opposite, so weak, but dead set on flexing my shriveled muscles in front of anyone with eyes. Tim swore he'd change all the diapers, do all the wash, do midnight formula feedings if I didn't want to milk my boobs. He cajoled and persuaded. Finally, I said fine. I'd started working landscaping, no piss test required. Tim told me to quit, but the physical labor soothed my brain. The first loss wasn't my fault. Or maybe it was, but it wasn't my choice. It happened 10 weeks in, and Tim had already started to tell people. You should have waited. I kept repeating it as I sobbed on the doctor's table. Tears swelled in his eyes, but he only agreed. He should have waited. No one ever accused me of being maternal. I'm all angles and curses. After I imagined the way life might be for the three of us, me and Tim and a mini Tim, it became even harder to face the colorless days as they really were. Tim did everything right. The baby did everything right. The fault dwelled in me. All the wounds I tried to hide seeped again. My mom with the vomit crust in her hair, holding me by the arm and whipping the hairbrush against my thighs. Her kicking my brother JR down the duplex step. Her pleading for me to understand how much she loved me, how she'd change, and about all the vacations we were going to take. Uncle Ed and his hard hands stroking the soft fur of my little girl legs after she passed out under vodka bottles, blood pooling from JR's head to the double yellow lines while a truck driver swore he never saw a kid. Me alone, me in agony, me in pieces. You're thinking, come on, your childhood couldn't be that bad. It's a cliche. Keep on the sunny side. You probably grew up with a backyard pool, pony, and canopy bed. My foster family set up a cot for me in the tool shed. Mice and snakes aren't the worst roommates. The past seems unbelievable and excruciating. I don't know how any of it happened, and I don't know how I came to be sitting here in the psychiatric ward with my wife talking to my counselor while I'm mired in pains of the past and worries for the future. When the worms come, though, I know I made the right decision about the babies. No way I'd make a baby suffer the problems I created for it. Tim wanted to keep trying. I wanted to keep Tim. I got pregnant easily and had to find ways to get unpregnant as easily. People act like ending pregnancies is painless, like hormones don't ripple through you like electricity, like your brain forgets to care. Doing the right thing requires some suffering. My body finally let me down, though. A grapefruit-sized abscess ruptured after I'd let a pregnancy go too long and had a quick and dirty procedure. Tim talked to the doctor while I recovered from surgery, 2 men sharing my secrets. I'd never meant to abort my marriage. Taffy coughs and I look up. She and Deb blink in time. I blink back. Tim claimed he could support me through alcoholism, but that I'd never recover from being a lying liar who lies. Not his exact words, close enough. I tried to do different with Deb. She found me in Panama City working on a week-long bender. I had no house, spotty jobs of a nature you don't need to know. Tim kept the trailer and the dog. Nothing emotionally bankrupts you like losing the dog. I tried terminating my own life, one bad choice at a time. Deb bellied up to the bar, and I ordered her to buy me a drink. She did. She had happy eyes and a soft voice. Stevie Ray Vaughan sounded smooth, and the drinks lost count of how many Reese's they had. My veins burned, and my heart throbbed looking at Deb. I got all my fixes that night. I woke up in the ER with Deb holding my hand. Even when she irritates the piss out of me, Deb is who I want holding my hand. And here she is again, showing up after our showdown about who needs help. She found me with a needle, only this time I probed with it for the worms in my face. I believe in science, so I told Deb to fuck the fuck off because I had to identify these parasites. They told me what I could eat and watch. When I didn't behave, they'd wriggle, so I had to dig them out. I tried to coexist, to share this good-for-nothing body with them. Deb spent over a year wanting to believe me, got the house fumigated even. When she noticed the wounds wouldn't heal, she told me the worms weren't real, like I should believe her instead of my own senses. But then Deb said a thing that shouldn't have been so profound. When have I lied to you? I'm a lying liar who lies. Life taught me to take what I need. We have 6 cats, and Deb still volunteers at the shelter. That's how Deb does life. I don't know what these two want from me with their big eyeballs and kind faces. The meds lifted a fog. I see the scars now. Pits mark my face, marks skid my arms, thin line of a hysterectomy, 2 thick pale stripes across my wrists. These tally the choices I've made over 50 years. My mom and uncle and foster parents placed the bruises carefully where you can't see. I still wince at their tender purpleness. What about when the bad things come back? Tears flood and break the levee of my lashes. I don't know what to do. What can I do when all these bad things live in me? A lilac smell trails through the window. Smells like a spring night by the tool shed where I could hide behind the lilacs before getting locked in. I sobbed like a child who abandons reason and just hurts. Deb's sneaker sidles next to my flip-flop. I don't flinch away because Deb's okay. Deb's safe. She knows how to touch the ferrule. Her thin hand inches in and closes on mine. The tears threaten to wash me away, but here's my lifesaver keeping me afloat. I think, just let me drown. But I hold on tighter in spite of myself. When tears trickle and air refills my lungs, Deb says another goddamn thing. What if those things don't come back like they were before? What if we find a way to get better together again? Taffy's chair squeaks. What do you think about what Deb is saying, Risa? We can keep talking, trying medications. I hope you know that you're worth it. Would you want to be well? Who asks this question in the psych ward? But I do have to think about it. I read this poem once about hope having feathers. It stuck with me. Hope can take flight or get mauled by the neighborhood cat. Hope's always vulnerable. Hope demands to be nursed. Hope can be hopeless. I exhale and look for the lilacs out the window. Nowhere to hide. Deb deserves her happy ending, even if I'm only beginning life all over again. Okay, I whisper. And
Danara, that was absolutely mesmerizing.
thank you.
You said you finished that today?
I did.
I am blown away. That was fantastic.
Oh, thank you.
I love the word play. Shooting Jack, when my husband recovered from a shooting, you did that over and over.
Yeah, I don't know. I just got on a roll, I guess. I definitely spent many hours working on it today, so it wasn't just a flash.
There was only so many hours in today. She is such a compelling voice, the narrator. The Morning After Girl. It was about not a place for reformation, but violent formation.
Yeah. I mean, and to be honest, I definitely did borrow this from a very good friend and neighbor that I'd had who really struggled post-addiction. She'd been clean for years, and people sometimes really don't think about the complications of having been sick for so long. And that was something that she struggled with, coming to terms with schizophrenia.
Wow. So some of those details are from her life?
Not exactly, but I guess I took some inspiration from her. She's someone who would reveal sort of deep things at what felt like odd moments, and it just made me think about the ways that people really can't bury those things sometimes.
Wow. It was entirely compelling. And even twisting his foot on the cowboy boot, just from the beginning, you had me glued. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Yeah, thanks, Troy.
Yeah, get that story out there to the world. It needs to be read.
I'll work on it.
Yeah, very cool. I'm going to bring back our other readers and your friends.
Hey!
Hey. I like how Danara's like, oh, this is like just a bit like this is just a thing, and then it's like that was really good.
Well, thank you. I don't know. You don't know if it's a thing though when you're writing it. You just don't know.
I know, but It was really good.
Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Just this little ditty I wrote today on a napkin.
Well, I had to meet expectations in performing with the two of you. So,
well,
superstars.
you did. That was really good. You guys, this was so fun. It's like having
Yay!
I know. I wish we were all in the same room. That'd be
I know,
fun.
I know, me too.
That'd be way more fun.
Yes.
I mean, come on, Troy. You should fly everybody in. That should be
well,
like
maybe we could do a residency. They have a lot of readings at a residency, so I don't know. We could figure something out, but
be fun.
that would be great. And
Yeah.
I'm so grateful hearing from all of you. I'm glad you got to reconnect.
Yeah.
Ew.
Yeah, me too. Thanks, Jen, for corralling us all.
I'm
Putting the pressure on.
I know. I peer pressured them, but it worked.
I'm really
did.
glad you did. I'm really glad
She
you
pit us
did.
against each other. It was like, Melanie will do it if you do it, Danara. Danara will do it if you do it, Melanie.
It worked.
It's worked in the past, so
Yeah, it does work. It is an effective tool.
The writing was all so strong, and that was just scorching. I just say it again, Danara. Thank you for bringing that. You were uncertain about it, but it was very successful.
yeah.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome. Next week, we have Alexis Page, Nikki Patton, and Amanda Johnson, who read about a year ago together. They are wonderful readers. And then we're going less often, maybe once or twice a month of the summer. So May 22nd, we have Anne Britting Olson and Brenda Prescott, who I don't think I read for us before. And then probably nothing until June when Stonecoast does the book release series. But you are all fantastic. Please come back in the fall or next spring. I want to hear more from your tremendous work.
Thanks, Troy.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks, Troy.
Bye-bye, everybody at home.
Claire.
Bye.